Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. So this is a webinar where we're going to talk a little bit about the Cyber Essentials requirements and understanding user access control for schools. So I'm Emma Philpott, I'm CEO of IASME, and Andy and Neil will be joining me today from our technical certification team. So Andy is going to go through the presentation and tell you all the information that we think is useful for you, and Neil will be here answering the questions as we go along. And then once the presentation has finished, both Neil and Andy will have a go at answering some more of your questions. At the end, we will be able to upload the recording of this webinar, and you'll be able to access that from about tomorrow via our website. And also we will take a copy of all the questions that have been asked and write answers and make that available as well to download from our website. So do ask questions as we go along, and I hope you find it useful. So over to you, Andy.
Thank you, Emma. Hi, everyone. So yeah, I'm Andy, and I'm a member of the tech team at IASME. For those of you that haven't been on this group of presentations before, a bit of background of what we do at the tech team. We're here to provide support and to basically back up the standard and ensure it's all complied to. We can't give you individual one-to-one consultancy, but if you do need any of that, you can always go onto our website and look for our certification bodies who you can contact directly, and they will be able to give you that consultancy should the questions particularly stump you. I'm also a school governor, so I know exactly where schools are coming from, and I'm going through this as well with my school. It's a little primary school in Worcestershire. Yeah, and so today we're going to do a little, it's a bit of a shorter presentation than the previous ones we've had. Should take around 20 minutes, and it's on the fourth technical control, which is user access controls, and that of course will be followed by questions that we just mentioned earlier. Anything that we don't get around to answering today, we will have posted up on the website afterwards, and will form part of that sort of frequently asked questions part we've got on the website. So if an attacker does manage to get access to your school's network, it is important to have controls in place that will minimise the potential damage that they can cause. One way an attacker can gain access is via account theft or misuse. Staff and governor accounts should have just enough access to the software or settings and device connectivity functions for them to provide their role and no further. So what we're saying here then is that user access controls are in place, and what they really do is they help limit the impact of any potential breach should your school be unlucky to be successfully targeted by an attacker. In secure configuration, in the last presentation, we spoke about preventing executables, which were potentially exploits, from auto running and not having overcomplicated password policies. So, the users wouldn't be caught out by writing their passwords down and then could trigger an attack that way. However, bad stuff can still happen no matter what controls we put in place, so it really is important just to limit any damage that can be caused. Strong user access controls being put in place will help limit what the attacker can do. So hopefully now, after this presentation, you should start being able to see the layered defence that the Cyber Essentials controls will offer you, and provide some protection to the schools. By the end of this presentation, you'll be able to understand why user access controls are important, state which devices your school will need to implement user access controls to, understand the technical controls that you'll need to put into place on those devices, and then we'll finish off just with a few procedures you can put in place that will help aid you answering compliant questions within the Cyber Essentials self-assessment questionnaire. So as always, in all of the presentations we've had, this is just a little listed for a bit of a refresher for you. All of this common terminology here is taken from the Cyber Essentials requirements for IT infrastructure, and that can be found on the NCSC website. The bottom two, organisational data and organisational services, isn't quite in there yet, but it is being added on the updated requirements document that's going to be released in the next couple of weeks. So if I quickly go over them then, devices is just all types of hosts, network equipment, servers, networks and end user equipment. Software is all your operating systems, your commercial off-the-shelf applications, all the plugins, interpreters, scripts, libraries associated with that, as well as any network software and firmware. Organizational data can be defined as any electronic data that belongs to your school. And organizational services is really how the software applications and the other applications that will interact with that, so you can get hold of that organizational data. Why is user access controls, why are they important then? You need to ensure that all accounts are authorized, so you know who is accessing what. Every active user account in your school, which includes student and governor accounts, if they're provided by the school, can facilitate access to school devices and applications. This in turn can provide access to sensitive data. So by ensuring that only authorized users have accounts and that they are granted only as much access as they need to perform their role, you can reduce the risk of information being stolen or damaged. Compared to normal user accounts, accounts with special access privileges like your admins will have enhanced access to devices, applications and information. If one of these accounts are compromised, the results could be catastrophic. An attacker will get access to whatever the account has access to. So, for example, if an admin is exploited, they will have access to a larger scale of information and more rights associated to what access they can do and the damage they can cause. This could lead to more data being corrupt or changed or stolen. As well as the data, think about settings. So anyone with domain or local administrator access can access your school's organizational services. And this could allow them to execute software that could make significant changes to your operating systems. It could possibly also allow other exploits to run by bypassing the security systems that we've put in within the other technical controls that have been put in place. And they can make changes to other people's accounts. If they're a domain admin, think about the blanket changes they can make so they could access all accounts and change all settings for all accounts. And if a malicious person has admin access, they could even have the rights to set up their own account, assign themselves admin privileges once again, which will help them remain undetected. So if an administrator believes they've been breached, for example, they could go through, change all their passwords, they could make themselves as secure as they want, but you could miss that extra account that's been created in that short time to maintain access by the attacker. One of the most important things that admins need to ensure is that they do not carry out everyday tasks like web browsing or opening emails whilst using their admin accounts, basically while using their elevated privileges. They should use a separate user account, which is what they do the day-to-day tasks with, because if not, imagine what would happen if you accidentally open that malicious file or click the link. The attacker, remember, the attacker will only have access to whatever the user has access to that clicks that link. So if that's a user of an admin account, they will have more access to do more damage. So here's an example of what could happen if an admin carries out everyday tasks on their elevated account. So in this scenario, we've got Jodie, who's a school business manager, and she's logged in with her admin account. If Jodie's on that admin account and decides to do a bit of internet surfing or start reading her emails, any associated malware is likely to acquire those administrative privileges. So at the moment, there's been quite a lot of news about ransomware attacks hitting schools. It's quite a hot topic at the moment. I don't know how many people here read, I think a couple of weeks ago, there was a large MAT in London that got targeted. I'm not sure how many, but here they've all been encrypted with ransomware. That's likely to have happened because somebody would have had admin privileges within the domain, and that ransomware has then been allowed to spread through all of the other schools' accounts. So when we talk about the user access controls and the technical controls, this is what, when you answer your questions, what you need to apply those technical controls to. We've got email, web and application servers, desktop computers, laptop computers, tablets and mobile phones. And then these are the technical controls that must be put into place. The schools must be in control of their user accounts and access privileges granted to each user account that has access to the school's organisational data and services. This includes all staff, including those who volunteer, like governors, as well as third parties, which include your IT providers and students that you create accounts for. So the school must be aware of how its user accounts authenticate and the controls associated with that authentication. This means that you will be responsible for ensuring authentication is in place prior to access to the school's organisational data or services. So previously we spoke in secure configuration and we spoke about password policies and what makes up a good password and all of that good information there. So you need to understand how your accounts will authenticate into your systems. Another task you need to do is you need to be able to show that you actively remove or disable any accounts that are no longer used. For example, if a governor or staff member leaves a role, or if there's a period of inactivity, you should consider whether to disable this account or not. You need to be able to state how as a school you ensure this is done and that you monitor this. So it's no use just saying, yep, we've done it. You need to have something in place that there's a way you check to how, in case you do miss this, how you catch up in effect. So implement two-factor authentication where available. Okay, so when we say when available, this doesn't mean to say that you must always have it. It's just if it's there and it's comes as an option on the devices and software that you're using, you need to use it. So for Cyber Essentials, we don't expect you to spend money on solutions if they don't come as standard. Remove or disable special access privileges when no longer required. So again, like with a standard user account, admin privileges must be removed when they're no longer required. For example, a member of staff may have admin privileges temporarily. Could be somebody who's trained as an admin, but they don't need that right all the time, but they may be covering for someone who may be away on sick leave. As soon as that person's back, if those rights are no longer needed, you need to make sure you remove them. Remove those privileges and make sure you keep track of who's got what. Also on change of roles, like for example, if a member of staff was promoted, if they don't need those admin rights, take them away. Just because you're further up the hierarchy, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have automatically you should have those admin rights. They must only be given to those people that require them to do their job. And those people must be suitably trained and suitably trained personnel who are responsible for carrying out those tasks within their job description. So most importantly then, as we covered before, only carry out admin tasks. Only carry out admin tasks when logged into your admin account. Okay, so no emailing, no web browsing, or any other standard user activities that may expose administrative privileges to avoidable risks. Again, when you're doing this control, we don't expect you to purchase expensive software that may be available to ensure this is achieved. You can demonstrate compliance through a combination of policy, process, or training of your administrators. Okay, so for Cyber Essentials, here are some procedures that if you have in place, they may help you with your questions in the question set. So ask what is your account creation process? Okay, so you're going to get asked that question. Do you have an account creation process? What does everybody have to go to before receiving an account? Including here things like who approves that, and generally what has to happen. Ensure you have a regular review that makes sure that when somebody leaves or after a period of inactivity, their account is disabled or removed. Again, make sure you've got a formal process for giving someone administrator level accounts. You know, how do you ensure that administrators are suitably trained? How do you ensure that only not the bare minimum, but well, yeah, the bare minimum of people have that. So only those that need those tasks to do their job have that level of access. And then again, finally, the most important thing, how do you ensure that admins are only using their admin account for the right reasons? Again, this can be carried out through training or through your procedures and policies. So like I said, that one's pretty short and sweet. So we will go over to questions now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Andy. I don't think there have been any questions. Have you seen any, Neil?
No, I've seen none. No.
Okay, brilliant. That's fantastic. If you do decide that you've got any questions, then please do either ring us up or email us, and we'll be able to answer those for you. I'm going to post now a link to the feedback that the Department for Education would really appreciate if you could complete and fill in, which just gives some feedback on this webinar. So I'll post that now. So if you could please click through that, if you have just a few minutes, and just answer some questions about how you found this webinar, that would be fantastic. If you would like to see this webinar or any of the others, then they'll be available on our website. And as I said before, if you have any questions at all, just give us a ring or email us and we'll help if we can. Thank you very much indeed.